What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down why tomorrow is going to be a massive day for Tesla and the market going forward because Tesla has their Q2 earnings report coming out after the market closes tomorrow. So, this is going to be very important. I'm going to talk about what you should expect for revenue and their earnings per share, what the expectations are, and why this is going to be big for Tesla. I'm going to break down the Netflix earnings report, the FOMC meeting, the whole Twitter deal with Elon Musk, and also what Musk put on his Twitter page as well, which is breaking news for Tesla and the future of this company. Now, before I break any of this down, before I get into any details about Musk's tweets and also what's going on with Tesla, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. And not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed 6 free stocks, each worth up to $3,500. And you could always sell these 6 free stocks for cash and use that cash to buy some Tesla shares for free in this limited time offer that ends in just 5 days. So please check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So looking at Tesla, this thing was up 2.07% for the day, and it's actually holding up very, very well. I mean, you could already see this thing's making those higher lows. It's respecting this overall pennant, but overall, it's still pushing more towards the upside. So it's looking kind of bullish right now. And I did talk about why I didn't actually want to see this. I would rather see this thing drop going into earnings so that we could see a nice move after, but it may not actually happen that way. It looks more like this thing is just going to keep on pushing up, and there's lots of excitement for earnings. So what I'm going to do right now is break down earnings. Then I'm going to actually talk about the charts a little bit later. So tomorrow is the big day. We have the Q2 earnings report coming out, and this is going to be massive because it's going to show the trajectory of Tesla, how they're doing amidst all of those whole lockdowns in China and things like that. So it's going to be big. We have some expectations from the streets, from Wall Street, and big reports out there. Revenue should come at about $16.88 billion. That's the Q2 revenue, and the adjusted earnings per share should be $1.83. Now, I know that this is a bit of a drop relative to what we saw from before or even a year ago, but that's due to the fact that there were supply chain constraints and the long shutdowns for over 2 months in Shanghai. So that did kind of caused a lot of problems for the company, kind of slowed them down a bit. But I do have some very good news about this. So profitability at the end of the day should still be okay for Tesla. They are a little bit down overall, but it should kind of hold up relative to what some people are thinking. And there are some other very important things to look out for, and that's the fact that Elon Musk is talking about how the second half is going to be a lot better, especially with the new gigafactories coming out. And going down right here, we could see that the Giga China or the Giga Shanghai, it's actually back to full operating capacity, and we will see them actually come back to their delivery targets going forward as well. And there is something else very important I want to show you. The Deutsche Bank analyst Emmanuel Rosner, he wrote that he expects Tesla will maintain its annual delivery target, which he says implies considerable volume ramp in the second half, very similar to what Elon Musk said. So just to make this simple, Q1 was really good for Tesla. If you look at their earnings, they did over 300,000 deliveries. And then Q2 is going to show a bit of a drop due to the lockdowns and so on and so forth. But Q3 and Q4 could actually make up for it if they do see a big increase overall. This is in turn is showing a 1.4 to 1.5 million vehicle delivery or production for Tesla overall for 2022 still is very possible based off what they're capable of doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually beat that, in my opinion. Now, other big things to look out for from these previews is the fact that we are going to see their deliveries as well, more information about them from revenue and things like that. And we are going to see some really good crowdsourced financial estimates. They're going to be very big and kind of in comparison to many expectations. And going down, we could see Tesla has a tendency of beating. I think the only problem with showing data like this, which is what this source is doing, is this is a very special quarter because of the lockdowns and things like that. But Tesla does have a tendency of beating expectations. So I would really like to see that. Different sources have different expectations. I still think Tesla could beat them, as crazy as that may sound. I think a revenue should be kind of okay. They could maybe come a little short, but their EPS does seem a little bit low for the estimate. So I think that EPS is going to be a beat. Tesla's going to beat earnings per share actually, but their revenue may be a little bit down compared to expectations based off what I'm seeing. So I know it could be wrong. Maybe they beat everything, and I am still inclined to think that. But overall, as long as they show some very good results, as long as they have nice announcements as well, which could be said for the future, we may get some very big announcements involving Tesla Energy and so on and so forth. Not to mention their supercharger network and big updates like that. Those could be very excuse me, very, very bullish catalysts for Tesla. So that could be very awesome as well. And I think a lot of investors are very excited as we are seeing the market making some very good moves. So when it comes to SPY, like I mentioned, it is possible for SPY to break out of this position it's in. Now, I want to talk about something very important. We have this triple top that formed right here, and you could see the SPY. It's essentially testing this very key zone. This is the key resistance level around that 393 range. And if we break above that, we would most likely fill the gap up here. If we break below that, if we get rejected off that, we would probably drop down a bit. Now, if the SPY were to drop down, it could actually drag Tesla down a little bit, but overall, I don't think it would matter too much because Tesla is probably going to get a nice push up going into tomorrow. Now, when earnings come out, I mean, it could really go either way, but I do think it's very probable that Tesla might actually see a very nice move to the upside. Like I said before, it's pushing up very, very well. So I'm inclined to believe this thing might actually push and actually fill the gap up here on that 772 range going forward. The only tricky thing about this is if you are playing options, you should be very, very careful with implied volatility because that IV crush could get you whether you get the direction right or not. So even if you do anticipate a big move to the upside and you buy a bunch of calls, you could still end up selling them for lower than what you bought them for because of the fact that even if it runs, implied volatility could be very, very trippy. Now, what I do want you guys to know is I don't know the exact direction Tesla will go into going into maybe Thursday, because that's going to be Tesla moving after earnings. But I do think it's very likely we have a tendency of beating expectations and doing very well. The company is very resilient. So we might actually see some bullish price action based off what the chart is showing so far. So I'm basically 60% in favor of a more bullish move and 40% in favor of a more bearish move. So for tomorrow, we might actually see this thing trade very similar to today, make a nice move to the upside, and we might get an extra boost because of excitement for earnings. And if earnings is a miss, if Tesla does not do as well, we could see this thing actually drop kind of hard. If it does very well in earnings, then this thing will probably make a very nice move to the upside and fill the gap up here around that 772 range and continue to push up. So why do I think it's going to make a big move? If I actually hide all my drawings and I actually show you the Bollingers, this is actually a key indication of that. Let me pull up the daily chart. So what happens is generally for Bollingers, it doesn't work as well for Tesla, but for stocks typically, when you see a massive move in either direction, this could be like a, I don't know, 5 to 10% move, something as little as that, or even a 1000% move, right? What typically happens to the stocks is we see the Bollinger Bands get very tight. They get really, really tight in a particular range, and then we see a big expansion into another direction. So let me show you an example of this in Tesla. This doesn't always happen, but you can see right here, the Bollinger Bands got really tight. This just represents the volatility from a 2 standard deviation basis. And you can see right here, they got really tight and they expanded and Tesla dropped hard. And then right here, right, they got kind of tight right here. We got a bit of an expansion. They got tight again, and they remained tight until we got this big expansion to 1,243, or the all-time high. So what's happening right now is there were instances where they got tight, like right here, and we dropped really hard. Other instances where it was really tight, and then we made a big move to the upside. So from the Bollinger Band standpoint, what I'm seeing right now is the Bollinger Bands were very wide right here around May, the end of May to June. They were very wide. They slowly got tighter and tighter and tighter, and now they're kind of getting pretty tight right here. Like look right here, they're pretty tight. This is an indication that we are going to see a big move in either direction, either down or up. We don't know the exact direction, but like I said before, I'm a little bit more inclined to believing it's going to be a little bit into the upside. Now, I have another reason for thinking that. That's also based off Netflix, because Netflix had their earnings and they actually did well. to our surprise, what's funny is we, or at least markets, had expected a loss of 2 million subscribers. They only lost about 970,000, so less than half of what the expected loss would be. And when it comes to their actual earnings, you could see they beat earnings per share. On revenue, they almost met on revenue, so it was still a pretty good report, and they still have about 220.67 million subscribers. So when it comes to this, I'm just using this as an example. Some of these earnings may not be the best, but other ones are actually beating expectations, which could be a sign that even if we are in a recession, we could be in kind of like a growth recession in a way, where we are seeing some growth, but the overall market is still in a potential negative GDP phase. So that in turn would mean that it is still possible for Tesla to actually beat on all expectations on their revenue and earnings per share. They could still be doing well even if we are in a recession. That could be indicative of some pretty bullish price action for the short term, but for the long term, as in for the next week, I do anticipate some downside, and that's what I have to warn you guys about. So let's just say if we go on Tesla right now, let's say they kill it with earnings, they do super well, and this thing actually pushes to that 772 to almost $800 level. If that happens, that's awesome. But unfortunately, the market may take a bit of a hit next week because we have the FOMC meeting. If you actually look at the CME report, you could see right here the markets right now haven't fully priced in a 100 basis point rate hike. They've only done it by about 35.6%. So that means that if we do get the FOMC meeting started by the 27th of July, and Jerome Powell announces that a 100 basis point hike, the markets are most likely going to take a hit. And I do anticipate that for next week. So my main intention is to warn you about this. I'm not trying to be pessimistic or anything like that. It's the uncomfortable truth. So even if Tesla makes like a really nice move to the upside, we push up to like maybe 800, the low 800s, even if that happens, this thing is probably going to end up dropping going into next week as well. I have to warn you about that. It's the uncomfortable truth about the markets. So be prepared for anything, especially because of how the Fed is going to remain kind of on the hawkish side as we still see inflation at these high points. So what's going to happen tomorrow, it depends on earnings, right? Earnings are going to be in the after hours, but for the share price, I do think that right now the market looks pretty excited. Tesla is pushing up pretty hard, and it looks to me like this thing might actually continue to push up into tomorrow. We could touch 750. We might see a lot of action between that 750 to 740 range. I would recommend being very careful. And let me actually bring back my drawings just to show you guys the key support and resistance levels. So if this thing drops, remember 730 is going to be a bit of a support zone, and that isn't necessarily that strong. Then we have 715 to 710, that range right there. 700 flat will be another support zone if we were to drop, and we are more likely to see some upside in my opinion. So be on the lookout for that 740, how we react to 740, because so far today it hasn't been able to be broken. And if we break 740, then 752 to 750, that's the next key zone. And if we manage to break past that somehow, this thing could actually go into some uncharted territory from a long time. We haven't seen Tesla this high for quite some time. This thing could actually go as high as that 760 to 770 range, but 772 particularly has that gap. So that is a key zone to look out for and be prepared for that. What do I think is going to happen tomorrow? I'm aiming a little bit more towards some more bullish price action in anticipation of decent earnings. So I just want to put that out there that, yeah, that's great. If Tesla crushes it, it most likely will do fine. So I do think the share price can make some very bullish price action moves. But going into next week, I do anticipate downside due to the FOMC meeting. So it's probably going to be short-lived, unfortunately. You could trade this, though. It's really up to you. I also want to now talk about this right here. With the whole Elon Musk Twitter trial, I just want to note that there's been just so many things going on in the courts right now. It's become very, very complicated. And there hasn't been that big delay people were talking about. But there is a very big point I want to kind of bring up about this $44 billion deal. And that actually was stated right over here. If we look at this on Twitter, this YouTuber known as Meet Kevin tweeted this. He stated that some say at Elon Musk has to buy Twitter as is with bots because he waived his rights to due diligence, which is actually not true. I agree with him there. And Section 10b-5 states that Twitter can be liable for omissions of or misleading material facts, waiving due diligence does not mean you have to accept a fraudulent disclosure. Excuse me. So I know that's kind of contentious to some people, but he actually has a very good point about that. There's not an obligation right over there, and Musk responded with an exactly. This is an indication that Elon Musk is not going to be forced to buy Twitter as of right now. That's not confirmed, so don't listen to people trying to say that. I know there were some articles just going nuts over this. If Musk is forced to do that, it could lead to a bit of a drop for Tesla. I'm just not seeing that right now. Don't worry about that. It's not really that big of a deal as of right now. But in the future, some big things could come. But I just want you guys to remain calm, cool, and collected and just not worry. The big thing I want to talk about is this right here. Elon Musk tweeted congratulations to Fremont, the Tesla Fremont plus the Giga Nevada for making their 2 millionth car. Once again, they're doing very, very well, breaking records again and again. Very, very proud of all the hard work of the team. Elon Musk is giving them a big shout out. And that just goes to show EVs are the future. And we are seeing some very good innovation from them. So Elon Musk did also say other things about that, about the improvements being made to Fremont and also in parts of California. But he did mention that now Tesla Fremont is the biggest car factory in North America. Once again, another great achievement from Tesla. And I really wish even more news like this to come out for them. Pretty soon he's going to be reporting the 10 millionth car produced by Tesla as a whole, and even more than that. So with that said and done, the future is insanely bright for this company. I've mentioned this before. I see the share price soaring. We have a potential stock split coming up next month. I don't know the exact date and things like that. It could be a 4-for-1 split. We'll have to just wait and see. I'm sorry, I think it was a 3-for-1 split. But anyways, doesn't matter right now. It's not 100% confirmed. We'll have to wait and see on the details. And additionally, just to let you guys know, the Bollinger Bands were tight, so we could see a very, very bullish move going into tomorrow and the day after. I am a little bit more inclined to see this thing pushing to the green, so it's looking good. So be prepared for that. Watch out for those support and resistance levels. Stay strong, remain calm, cool, and collected, and get ready for earnings coming out tomorrow. I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon, and peace out.